Well, hello everybody out there in webinar land. My name is Adrian Kmo. I'm the writer for Swept. For those of you who don't know, we're a janitorial software company, and our goal is to make life easier for janitorial companies and their employees. So thank you everybody for joining us today. If you want, you can put your city in the little comments section there because we love to hear where you guys are from. And joining us today, we have Jason Martell. Hey, Jason.
Hi there.
Yeah. Jason is the owner and operator of Inside Out Cleaning. Jason's company has enjoyed some pretty steady growth since he took ownership around 2013. So Jason, tell us a little bit about your company and their growth and trajectory over the last couple of years.
Okay. A company was started in 91, and actually even before then, my father was cleaning carpets since 78. I remember as a 12-year-old, I would head out with him on carpet cleaning calls and things. So, my family and myself has certainly been in the cleaning business in some fashion for quite a while. But Inside Out was born in 1991, essentially a residential cleaning company at that stage. When I came into the business in 2003, it was about 70% residential, about 30% commercial. And since then, 16 years, around 2006 is when I really started to sink my teeth in and make some pretty dramatic change in the business compared to what it was before. And it's quite different now. So at this stage, it's we're running about 80% commercial and 20% residential.
That's awesome. All right, guys. So this is Jason. We're going to be answering some of your questions later on, but anybody who wants to ask any questions for Jason or Swept related, feel free to type it in now, and we'll be fielding them towards the end. If your question's specifically about Swept, go ahead and ask anyway, and we have our lovely support team member, Darcy, who will try to answer your questions directly. And if she's not able to get to you, she might even email you after the webinar. So before we start the Q&A, we are going to run a poll or two, and basically we want to know how many software solutions are you guys currently using with your janitorial company? And the second poll question will be, do you use these solutions as a selling feature when you're doing like walkthroughs, when you're doing proposals? So feel free to answer those and we'll have a look at the results. And so far, a lot of you are saying that you have just one bit of software, with a few of you saying you have two. Anyway, we'll get to those later because it looks like some of you guys are taking some time filling them out. So yeah, we'll just get started with the Q&A. So Jason, how do you feel about commercial versus residential as a defining place in your company's growth? Is the goal actually to be 100% commercial?
Yeah, our goal is certainly to eventually be 100% commercial, and we have slowly but surely moved our company in a proactive manner to more 100% commercial. It's been rather difficult to entirely remove ourselves from the residential side of things. We've been in that game a long time. There's certain types of service that we due to good margin and years and years of doing it, and it's difficult to get out of certain things. But we are certainly we are marketing way less, if in many cases, depending on the service, none. Not at all as far as residential is concerned. So there are certain things that we're just kind of remaining static. We're allowing to continue to be a part of our business, but certainly we are focused on or focusing more on trying to be 100% commercial.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes good sense. And tell us a bit about what it's like to run a janitorial company before you guys started using software and whatnot to sort of like speed up the business process and the administrative side of things.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, before I remember many binders that were created, and each one of those binders was for one of our cleaners, and within those binders there was information about each of the locations that they had to take care of, and the the daily duties and supplies, and who they needed to talk to get new supplies, and whether we supplied it or whether the client supplied it, and the equipment, so on and so on and so on. So there was a lot of information in those binders for each one of the locations. Again, this is all paper, and all the paper needed to be updated on a regular basis. So there were these binders all over the place. We needed to bring them back whenever something changed within a cleaner's schedule, or when a cleaner left and a new one came in. We needed to do a lot of paperwork, legwork,
Wow.
to make sure that our information was managed in a reasonable way, and to have the information in the fingertips of the people that needed them. And that was in many cases the cleaners.
And when did that crossover happen? When did you guys stop using pen and paper solutions and sort of start embracing, technology and software solutions?
So again, I started 2003. We were still writing invoices by hand, and it was 2006 when we bought the first piece of software. It was in-house. It wasn't in the cloud at that time, but it certainly helped to streamline some of the things that we did and the information that we needed to get in the right hands. So that was in 2006, and I would say, from then on, it was a big jump in 2014-15 when the cloud was becoming more part of just available and lots of tools started to become available to end users like us. So it really ramped up at that time, but 2006 on is when we really started to embrace technology and change our company for the better.
Amazing. So did you find that there was a bit of a trial and error process in finding just the right solution, or was it just as the solutions got better, you just embraced the ones that were, working better, that sort of like progressed with the technology itself? Like the cloud thing has only become, the last 2 years, 3 years, when sort of like keeping things up to date online, GPS tracking and whatnot, these are all really new features. So did you find that you had to try a bunch of software solutions, or did you find you landed on the right ones fairly quickly?
I would say that for the most part, our decisions were sound, but we were certainly, I think I am a person, and thus our company is a company that is kind of tries to be as much on the cutting edge as possible. So 2006, again, that was kind of the cutting edge of the software that we found at that time. 14, 15 is kind of the cutting edge of cloud solutions.
Yeah.
So we've done our best to kind of ride that edge, and I think for the most part our decisions have been sound. I can't think of any decisions software related that we haven't made work. There was a lot of trial before a decision was made, and then we kind of rolled with it once the decisions were made. So
and you guys expanded in 2016, right? You grew. So did you find that expansion was there just a lot of extra administrative stuff and employees to suddenly handle? Like, how smooth did you find that very quick growth process? Because I know a lot of our clients, they sort of expand slowly, but it's not really, they don't take on this sort of massive influx. So how did you find that as an experience?
I would say one of the deciding factors to the expansion that we made, so to purchase another cleaning company, was that the software that they were using happened to coincide with some of the software that we were using. So we were really able to kind of patch that company into our current, into the system that we were already using, it became pretty molded together, fairly quickly. I'm not saying there weren't growing pains, but we certainly had some similarities, and it was a huge factor in the decision to buy the company. So
I guess it's a good thing to look out for if you're planning to do a merger, is just making sure there's a lot of factors that are kind of aligned there, right?
Yeah.
Makes sense. How do you feel that technology itself has changed the way that you're able to run your company from like a managerial perspective? Do you find that, your managers or administrators have to do a lot less work, or is it just that their work is just as frequent but a little easier for them using these software machines? One time I used to like drive everywhere to check on people, I recall.
I would say from a less work standpoint, no. It's probably about the same. We all pretty much have the same output that we used to have, but I would say the difference is in what we're focusing on and working on. So instead of focusing an immense amount of time on making sure that paperwork is correct, a computer can handle that while we focus on our client, and we can focus on relationship building, and we can focus on better inspections, and we can focus on making sure that our cleaners are happier. And I would say that work, even though it hasn't reduced in our manager, for our managers and for our supervisors, it certainly is better work and better to focus on that than to focus on, oh my goodness, we need to make sure that paper is in the right spot.
Exactly.
In 50 different locations. So hasn't reduced work, certainly has made our work better and, in my opinion, more meaningful.
Nice. Yeah. And you mentioned the employees, and how do you find with these new sort of softwares being embraced, like how do you find the onboarding process? Are employees resilient to accepting those changes, or do you find that they're fairly easy to onboard with, with like Swept, for instance? Or
really difficult.
Yeah.
So there hasn't been a piece of software that we have taken on in the business as of yet that I can remember that hasn't been a bit of a growth pain. That hasn't been a bit of an abrasive change. I think it just goes with the territory and goes with change, whether that's positive or negative.
Yeah.
Change is difficult for us humans. So it has certainly been difficult, but it was my job. That's something that I felt, especially on the software side, was very important, that we were moving in a direction away from that monotonous information management on a archaic scale to having pieces of software that we use that help us in that regard, and help us again to focus on the things that I believe are important. So yeah, it was certainly my job to remind, to make sure that we were using, to make sure that it was updated, to make sure that that our company was moving in that direction. So I took that seriously, and I would say now that a lot of these things in place, I think from a employee, manager, supervisor standpoint, it will be very difficult for our staff if for whatever reason we would have to take some of the software away. It would be a real difficulty.
Yeah, going back to pen and paper might not be so easy. With your company in mind, I know that the janitorial industry in general has a very high turnover rate. Like employees, what is it, like 300% employees getting turned over a year, and you guys, Inside Out Cleaning, have managed to reduce that through just like really clever onboarding and engaging your employees in pretty meaningful ways. So do you want to talk a little bit about that? Because I find that to be a little inspirational.
I can't talk exactly on what the numbers are, but I believe between 100 and 300%. I've read in various places that is generally the turnover rate for most commercial cleaning companies. Ours is very below that, very much below that, and it's not really something I guess it's something that we focus on. We really want to keep our staff. We want to keep our great staff. We want to make sure that they're happy as best as we possibly can. We want to harbor great relationships with them, and that goes along with the way that they're onboarded, which we've created a pretty good system to a series of checklists with a program called Asana that really helps us to focus in on all the things that we feel are important during that onboarding process, to the ongoing management and support of each of our employees.
Yeah, communication's always a pretty prime feature.
Communication is pretty important there. So to have good communication systems and tools in place to make sure that there's proper back and forth that gets to the right people at the right time without an immense amount of headache.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we've done a pretty good job of that, but there's lots of room for improvement, and we will continue. That's the good work. Right?
Yeah.
That's the good work that I was talking about before, that we can focus on now that we've got some of these systems.
Definitely. And how have you found the overall process of scaling your business? Like, did you find it to be, from going to from a family owned and operated, cleaning janitorial company to, really targeting a lot of growth and targeting a lot of commercial properties? Like, did you find that to be a painful process of growth, or did you find it to be like relatively smooth? I know you already spoke a little bit about it, but just the idea, like, what are some key things to focus on when growth is your desire?
Well, I would say, one thing to focus on is growth.
Yeah.
So to keep your eye on growth and the fact that is, relatively important. It's in my opinion, and some would argue this, but in my opinion, it's better to be moving in that direction than trying to stay where you're at, because certainly things will happen beyond your control. That means your company will deflate, will reduce in some fashion, and in many cases beyond your control. So I do feel as though it's important to simply focus on growth. But I haven't seen or met growth that hasn't come with growing pains. It hasn't come with mistakes. It hasn't come with learning. It certainly is not an easy path. I've talked to many company owners and entrepreneurs that would have said virtually the same thing. It's certainly not an easy thing, but it's the right thing.
Yeah.
So yeah. Go ahead, sir.
I was going to say, we were chatting a little bit before, and you'd mentioned something about differentiators, like showing off your differentiators, and that really sort of aided in the bidding process. So let's touch on that a bit in terms of really targeting growth. And let's say you're going to do a bunch of walkthroughs. Do you use these sort of software solutions that you have as your differentiators? Do you use company policies? What's the kind of way that you
We certainly do our best to. That's I feel that's one of the differentiators. Our organization, our communication, our use of some of these technologies. One of them. So we certainly do our very best to make sure that is a part of our proposal system. So within we use a proposal system called Proposify, and our generic proposals that we use, there's a lot of points on some of the differentiators that we use, and in some cases links back to some policies that we have. And so yeah, we do our very best to, it's because I think that's important. I think that and maybe not all clients do, but I think it's important to show that we're an organized company. We communicate properly, and that will provide you with a really great service. So,
yeah,
we do our best.
Yeah, yeah, sure do. All right, so we're getting to the point now where we are going to tackle some questions. Give me a second here. We'll see what people have. Sorry, no technical difficulty. So the first question, and I think I'll let you tackle this one, Jason. We have Annie Cromwell. She says, I recently made the move to software, and things were way more organized now. Can you suggest any other ways to optimize my time, save money without sacrificing work ethic or quality? So aside from software, what's a good, sort of time-saving, ethic-solving habits that a company should get in when their focus is growth?
Well, I back to a point that I made earlier, focusing on as much on relationship building with your employees, relationship building with your clients outside of the realm of software, I think is very important. So using some of that time that you're saving and focusing a little bit more on connecting with all those clients and getting on the phone and having a chat with your employees, it's certainly something that we do our very best to do. And in times of a little bit more, when there's a little bit more time on our hands, we do a better job of that. Sometimes when we're up against the time crunch, those are the things that fall away, unfortunately. But we certainly try our very best to do that. So even outside of inspections, even outside of the regular check-ins with clients and employees, to give them a ring, and we have generally a few questions that we ask to try to break the ice and try to get a little bit of good feedback, or in some cases bad feedback, just feedback in general. To make the company better and create a better relationship.
That's good. Yeah, building trust is always an important thing. And I think that too often, you're right, people just don't focus on the human factor of, how are you guys feeling? Are you happy with our service, with our cleaners?
And it's not that we don't care. It's just there's so many other things that not we, entrepreneurs and managers and supervisors. It's not that we all don't care. It's just there are so many other things in the wave of business that take over.
Yeah.
But I do believe it's important to carve out a little bit of time to focus on that.
Exactly. I think you're absolutely right. And that's the wonderful thing about SWEPT is it buys you a little bit of time to focus on the human side of business. Shameless plug right there. All right. So let's see if we have any other questions going on in here. Just 1 second, fellows. Here's an interesting one. Have you ever, this is from Ken Bond. Hey, Ken.
I can.
Yeah. Did you ever buy cleaning contracts from other companies? So have you ever just bought out other people's contracts because it was a part of your growth plan? You're like, we want this area, we want this company, or this particular location.
Well, essentially that's what was done when I purchased the business.
Oh yeah.
So when we made the acquisition, essentially we were purchasing. There wasn't in this case there wasn't a lot of equipment for the most part. It was the contacts and the cleaners, and so certainly that's sort of what was done during my acquisition. I have not as of yet purchased a specific contract. So taken over just a contract for another cleaning company. That's not something I thought about it before, but it's not an opportunity that has come up as of yet.
Yeah. All right, let's see if we have any other good questions in here. 1 second. All right. We have a lot of SWEPT related questions, so I know Darcy's trying to handle those. So I'm just trying to pick through them. Yeah. All right, here's a cute one. From Ang Ashman. I love lists, so this is asking for a top 3. We like to do top 5 lists here at SWEPT. So what are the top 3 main things that made you grow as a business, and what was the duration? So sort of pick 3 main things that sort of helped you grow or drove your growth.
Great staff, so great people around the company to help during the growth stage, to be positive and passionate about growth. So that's certainly number 1. Organization is certainly up there, probably up there. If it wasn't for good solid organization with software related tools or other forms of organization, I don't think it would be. It would certainly be possible. It would just be hectic to deal with growth and to deal with those growing pains without solid amount of organization. Great communication has got to be up there as well. So having the right communication channels, using the right communication channels to focus on and to communicate with clients, communicate with employees, communicate inter-office. That's something that I think is very important. That's three. I don't know if those are the three, but
they're definitely good though. Like I think especially in the janitorial industry, happy employees. More companies need to focus on it because a happy employee means happy clients, right? If you're hiring somebody new every other month, then they don't know the locations, they don't know the clients, there's no repertoire. So it's really, it's a great thing to focus on. That's going to help on like every level, pretty much, right?
Yeah.
So I really think that's quite a wonderful thing. And we're just getting close to the end here. We've got a couple more questions, but they are SWEPT related, so I'm going to let Darcy answer those. And I just wanted to take a minute to remind you guys that SWEPT is a great solution for your janitorial company. And right now we're offering 7-day free trials. So if you were wondering, maybe, is this a good software for my company? Are we a good fit? You don't have to wonder. You can actually try hands-on yourself. And and you can see if it works. I would say there's a button that's going to appear somewhere on the screen, and you can click it and sign up for a 7-day free trial. Start that right away and see how it feels. And I want to thank you, Jason, for joining us today. And we'll be following up this webinar with, we're going to put it out as a podcast so people can listen to it if they don't just want to watch us chatting back and forth.
Wow, great.
Yeah, and we're also going to have a mini blog version of it. So essentially, there's going to be a bunch of ways that people who might have missed today's live performance can check it out. But it was really great having you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
great.
Thank you very much. And thanks for everybody for joining in today.